Good morning, everyone. Now, when I have your attention, I would like to introduce our today's speaker. Thank you so much for coming on Saturday, and I know it's a busy day, but for learning about your personal data protection is always a key point right now. So, I would like to introduce Mr. Chandan Pani. He is a CISO LTI Mindtree. He's an experienced IT and information technology security leader with over 20 decades of experience in banking, telecom, ITS, and healthcare. He's qualified CISSP, CISA, and CRISC certified professional who specializes in strategy, information security, ISMS, PCP, DR, forensic, vulnerability management, and infrastructure security. If you have further more questions from Mr. Chandan Pani, I think you can have a direct access to him. So with a big round of applause, I would really get the morning energy high. I'll introduce Mr. Chandan Pani.
Good morning. Hope I'm audible. Okay. Digital personal data protection, imperatives and risk. So basically we are not talking about one topic here. We are talking about three topics here. We are talking about digital, we are talking about personal data, we are talking about protection, right? So let's see what is digital first. If you can just change the first slide, yeah. So this is the dated data which is available on internet. So nothing that you have on this deck is from me. Most of the information is available on internet, and that's why this is digital, right? So if you look at some of these parameters what we have on this slide, number of smartphone per 100 people. So this is dated as what, 2018? Can somebody give me some number? What would be the current number for this? Any idea? Close? So we have around 900 million users on smartphone as of now. That many number of internet connections we have. So similarly, total internet users. How many of you know that globally, India and China together, we contribute 60% of global internet users. 60% of global internet users are India and China. Can you just imagine the numbers? Number of cashless transaction. Any idea? Not 4 times. So as of now, the number is close to 74 CR. 74 crores transaction, which is happening, and the monetary value is somewhere else, right? Monthly data consumption per unique connection. Any idea? So we are consuming close to, we are consuming close to 15 GB of data per month, per connection, on an average. Just imagine, when we started with 256 kbps internet speed. Today, nothing less than 100 Mbps speed that all of us we have at our home, right? 3 major changes to enable digital, which we have gone through, and we call it as a CCC framework: connect, cloud, and collaborate. So connect today is everywhere. We don't talk about any more internet issues, internet problems. We are talking about 5G now. We are talking about hyperconnectivity. We are talking about seamless connections. So the internet speed is not limited to 256 kbps, what it used to be 20 years ago, right? Cloud, it is almost there everywhere. Whether we like, we don't like, we end up using 100 cloud applications every day. If you look at your smartphone, at least 70 to 80% of those applications are hosted out of a different country, not in India, right? Collab. This is the major change which happened in the last 3 years. Now, earlier, collaboration used to be there at office. Go to a meeting room, go to VC rooms, talk to your colleague, Today, Teams, WebEx, Zoom, God knows what else. So digital, which has changed the world in last probably decade and so. COVID just accelerated that. It is not that COVID made anything new. We just started adopting faster than before. So that's what the digital change which happened in India, right? Impact on various industries. Today, whatever industry we have, you just add tech to that. Education, edtech, finance, fintech, healthcare, health tech, agriculture, agri-tech. Whatever technology you add, there's a blooming industry there. There are different kind of technologies that we have today behind all this tech so-called domains. When you say healthcare, there are different set of companies, different kind of technologies, different kind of players are there. Vis-a-vis if you look at education sector. Even edtech also is doing pretty well in India now, right? Probably few blips here and there, likes of your Byju's, likes of your some other players, Vedantu and all, but industry is there. Some are growing faster, some are going even faster, but industry is there and all of them have space in this country. Look at Swiggy's of the world, Zomato's of the world, look at so-called Blinkit. I'm not sure how many of you know Blinkit, but if you look at their numbers, they are clocking every day more number. I mean, on this earth, who needs things in 10 minutes? But they are clocking numbers, right? So this is what is the digital growth that we are going through. Now, if you put together everything, and if you want to say how this is impacting us, right? Let's see what is next. Every minute, in this room, we are there for last 4 or 5 minutes now, all of us. Every minute we generate this amount of data. Just look at the numbers, right? If I look at Google search, 5.9 million searches Google processes every minute. And at least 60% of them are coming from India and China, right? If you look at Amazon, 443K USD people are spending on Amazon site every minute. All the data points are on minutes, right? So similar data, if you look at Swiggy and Zomato, the amount of transactions they process per minute, so they have gone probably 100 times higher in last 4 years, right? Look at some of these numbers like YouTube user upload, 500 hours of video every minute getting uploaded to YouTube. I'm not sure how you consume that much of data, but this is what is there for all of us. Now this is what is the problem. This is not the solution, this is the problem, right? And from this place, the problem started. Now, if I walk 4 steps here, then apart from all of us, there are 2 other folks they know, at least when I'm saying about me. One is my smartwatch, which is, again, using Android. So somebody in Google, they know that I'm walking here. As simple as anything. There's a technology called GPS. Anyone, if you know that, GPS in 1970s, 80s was used only for war, military, tracking the planes with arms and ammunitions. Today, all of us we have, right? Plus, I have a watch with independent GPS. Independent GPS, see, phones are not with independent GPS. If you are using a separate tracker, then those are with independent GPS. That means my watch can talk to satellite directly. I mean, there's a limit of technology in our life. Anybody wants to track me, they can track my watch. Phone is not required. No internet required. Right? There's a satellite uplink. The GPS technologies are there. And they know where I am. This is the amount of technology which we have started using on our day-to-day life. And this is where the digital data is coming into picture. And this is where all the problems we have in our life, right? Let's see. Data misuse example in our daily lives. Now that we are generating so much of data, what is happening with that data? If you see, the data misuse is not necessarily theft of your data. So when people talk about data misuse, the perception that we have is data theft. somebody is taking my data, China is taking my data, some other country is taking my data, government is taking my data. No. When we talk about data misuse, there are many other forms are there, right? Let's look at commingling. Now, what is commingling? You collect data for one reason, and you start using it for something else, right? We'll see some of the examples also. Now, personal benefit, ambiguity, profiling, discrimination, analytics, impersonation. So if you have data, you can do all these things. How? We'll see two examples. Now, how many of you know Cambridge Analytica? All of you know? Okay, let's see how much you know. We'll see in the next slide. So Cambridge Analytica, Twitter, Amazon, Google, Uber, Morgan Stanley, Leaveyou, Eldon Insurance, these are various examples that we have seen where data was misused in some or other form of this, not data theft. Okay, few days ago, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I don't remember exactly, Domino's had a breach in India, right? The number of pizzas I ordered prior to that, the information was available. Somebody searched and told me you have ordered this much number of pizza. I told, okay, as long as these are confidential between me and my girlfriend, I'm fine. But if my wife knows, then I'll be somewhere else. But that was a joke. So that is what is the practical problem. If your data is your identity. Your data is your attribute. Your data is your personal property. Somebody can profile you based on your data. Somebody can profile you based on the data you generate, right? Sorry. Now, if you look at the very simple example, let's look at, all of us, we use Prime, Netflix, Amazon, right? Now, when you log into those kind of platforms, you would have seen recommended for you, right? That is nothing but profiling. They read those who are on Tinder. If you go to Tinder, Tinder can suggest matches, right? Those are profiling. If you go to Amazon, Amazon suggests in your country in this particular time, these are the products which are selling. Would you like to buy? It goes back and says, okay, last year you bought this. Now this product has got an upgrade. Would you like to buy this? Profiling, right? Let's say I am an analyst. I would like to know behavior of this room. I need certain data points. I don't have to ask. If I know how much salary you get, all of you, then I create a pattern, what kind of products I can sell. Can I sell a watch less than 30,000? Can I sell a watch more than 3 lakhs? I can create a pattern, right? This is what is the misuse of data. I can figure out how many of you are supporting right or left, right? In every country we have right and left from a politics point of view, right? If I know your choice, if I can go back and see how many news articles you have surfed in last 30 days, and if those are predominantly on the right, then I know that you are a right-wing supporter. I don't have to ask you, you don't have to tell me. If you are doing otherwise, I know you are anti-establishment or you are leftist, right? There are a lot of data points we generate. And this is what is the impact of data when it comes to the individual's life. A few days ago, AIMS had a data breach, right? Just imagine if somebody makes those informations public. What would happen? What kind of disease we have, what kind of problems we have, those are not for public consumption, right? So, data is now, people say new oil, people say it is everything, right? But the example what we saw, this is where we are generating the data all by ourselves. And these are the examples of misuse that we are going through. Let's pick one specific example. Let's say there is a beautiful house, right? And no boundary wall. Just imagine the house without that picture. Without that picture, all of you would like to see the house. With that picture, I don't think I would take that risk. But do you know, without the dog also I can put the picture? Nobody can stop me. I'm just changing your psychology. I'm just playing with your mind. Same thing happens when you are there on internet. The ads, what you get, they know what is your past consumption. They know what you have done earlier on different sites. And they propose that. Just imagine if this kind of ads are there in front of you. What happens? This was precisely used by Cambridge Analytica. What is Cambridge Analytica? I think some of you said yes, right? So let's see. How many of you know Cambridge Analytica was owned by a company, a direct military contractor doing shady jobs across the globe, which military never wanted to do, SCL Group, founded by one of the British Parliament member. That was Cambridge Analytica starting point. That's where Cambridge Analytica started. What you know, probably please go back and check. This is where Cambridge Analytica started. How many of you know Alexander Kogan, who was the conduit between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, was a Russian professor working for Russia. How many of you know Cambridge Analytica was funded by Russia and Trump administration? How many of you know Cambridge Analytica was connected back to Obama administration? How many of you know Cambridge Analytica had office across the globe, including India? How many of you know Alexander Nix, who was the CEO of Cambridge Analytica? He was there in TEDx, gave a TED talk, how to change people's mind with data. This was the value of data. They wanted to create a weapon of mass destruction. How? Using the data available to them. They had 65 data points on every US individual collected from different sources. They did cold calling to verify whether those data points were correct or not. They have gone up to the extent of verifying everything about individual just to understand. And they used to club them under various categories before the election. See, how you influence elections, there are traditional methods are there. All of us we know. But in modern society, I don't need to rely on those techniques anymore. If I have data, I can use them to influence your mind. And that's what happened in Cambridge Analytica. But the question here is not what happened to Facebook, not what happened to the individuals. My question here is, who did it? Was it Russia? Was it UK? Nobody knows. There's no concrete answer for all this. Nobody proved anything. But they were involved. So countries are involved when it comes to data, when it comes to data analysis, when it comes to your behavior. They have their own agenda to manipulate the data, use the data for their own purpose. And this was what Cambridge Analytica. If you go back one slide. So the same group was responsible for Leave EU, Brexit. All of us you know Brexit? The same group who was running Cambridge Analytica was responsible for the campaign of Leave EU. Same group, same techniques, same methods. How to influence people? Because there's only option, either you participate or exit, right? If you say Trump's election was rigged, then what happened in Leave EU campaign? From where they got the data? They got from this company called Eldon Insurance. Personal data of most of the European citizens. Same campaign manager who was there for Cambridge Analytica was used for this particular campaign also. So globally, data is getting misused. Is it happening in India? Oh yes, it is happening in India also, right? There is a sustained campaign political parties are actually doing to analyze us. There are sustained campaign by large e-com players. They like to understand what is our consumption pattern. There are systemic efforts are happening by data analytics players to understand where we would like to spend, how much we would like to spend, what is that is our political opinion, where we want to go. This is all based on your data. Is it legal? Is it illegal? Do we have some boundary? Probably the answer is not straightforward. And that is why we need data protection laws. And this is the base of all your data protection requirements. But there is a catch here. The catch what we have is, when we say data protection laws, invariably we go back and look at GDPR, right? Hope all of you know what is GDPR. Invariably we look at something which is there in UK. But please try to understand, GDPR is the third generation law there. They have gone through the first generation of regulatory requirements for privacy. They had U-Shield, they had Safe Harbor, they had FTC requirements, and they moved to the second generation. And today they have GDPR, which is a third generation regulatory requirement, which that country is currently practicing. And they have their own way of looking at GDPR. But as a country, we only had IT Act, which is not enough. Now from there, practically probably not possible that we jump directly to a GDPR kind of thing. Though we like it, though we respect it, though we practice it for our own businesses, but in all practical purpose, we should not look at as a benchmark. We should look at something which we can do it in this country. We have to have something which we can manage. And again, personal opinion, GDPR drives a lot of business decisions based out of European Union also. So we also need to do something where we can protect our national interest, right? That is where all this requirement for data protection started. This is the base. With me? Yes, no? Globally, there are 100 plus countries where we have some or other form of data protection requirement. I mean, how many of you know how many countries we have globally? Any idea? 203? I don't think so. 100 change something. Correct. United Nations number. Don't include Kailasha, by the way. Excluding that, we have at least 70% of the countries globally where we have some or other form of data protection requirement. In fact, Sri Lanka also has got a data protection requirement. But we don't have it as of now. Now, there are different countries, different kind of requirements. This is what is our journey in last couple of years, right? If you see, August 27, Justice Krishnan Committee first started the exercise of Data Protection Bill. Back then it used to be the PDPB, Personal Data Protection Bill, right? And we have gone through the entire exercise, then we realized it is not working, opposition, the requirements, foreign companies, all kind of drama we have seen. Finally, November 2022, current government of India proposed Digital Personal Data Protection Bill in a new form, new avatar, simplified with 35 plus different clauses, right? With a much broader, simplified version which came to our existence or which is now there in consultation stage, right? Now, we have gone through the grind, we try to understand why not PDPB, why not the current version, so all that has happened. Now, let's see what is there for us, right? All of us are, if I'm not wrong, auditors or some form of implementers, right? So let's see what is there for us. Now, very interestingly, this law is not that complicated. Unlike your HIPAA or a GDPR or a CCPAs of the world, this law is not that complicated. Very broadly, 4 or 5 things we have in this requirement. The first requirement says it is limited to the personal data which is collected online or digitized. Very simple. It has to be online or digitized version of personal data. So that means anything that you sign it on a piece of paper, Xerox it in nearest store are not part of this requirement. In future it might happen, I don't know. Still this is in consultation stage, but this is what is the law as of now. Clear? Okay, earlier, those who are trying to understand why this, earlier PDPB had everything, but now it is not there. Okay, right now it is only digital data. Be very clear, and that's why the title of the law also says digital personal data. Clear? First requirement. Second requirement. First time I see there is a penalty on data principal also. When I say principal, all of us are principals because we generate our own data. Aadhaar, PAN, my details, all this as a principal I own. And if I give it to somebody wrong, then government can penalize me also. So some amount of obligations are attached to me, which is slightly different than the global requirements. Then the third one is very tricky, voluntary undertaking. Now I can, as a company, I can go back and say, because of whatever reason, I'm unable to comply. Again, a tricky question mark, whether this is going to sustain or not, I don't know. Because most of these are in consultation stage. Fourth one, the notice which has to be given to the data principal has to be in his or her choice of language. Just imagine the number of approved language we have is 22. So let's say I want in Tamil, then the company has to give me the notice in Tamil. If somebody says I want Devanagari, then the company has to give the notice in Devanagari. Right? But this is not a big deal. AI solutions are there, they can take care. Translation can be done. But this is what is government's requirement, and this is retrofitted as of now. So whatever old data we have, and if this law is getting nod in winter session, then we have to ensure that we give itemized notice to every individual whoever data we have in our respective organizations. So it's not that easy, by the way. If you are accumulating data for last 10 years, you have to go back and give them itemized. When I say itemized, line item number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number of columns that you have, and you have to define why you are having it, the purpose of the storage of the data, right? And the bill has entirely omitted any kind of criminal penalty. At least we are happy about that. Criminally, we are not liable. So these are the broad areas, and maximum penalty is up to 500 CR. So based on the kind of non-compliance we have. But it is not a criminal act anymore, which the earlier law had an obligation. So that's a big change from the previous one to this one.
I have a question. What is the definition of personal data?
Okay, we'll come to that. So now, if you see who are the key stakeholders. Now, in this key stakeholder list, Data Protection Board of India, who can define what needs to be done, how needs to be done, but government is the only body as of now who can decide who can be part of your Data Protection Board of India. So there is a catch where the control goes back to government. Then the other actor is your data principal, who is generating the data. Now, when you say what is personal data as per the law, earlier we had multiple definitions. Personal data, sensitive personal data, right, financial data. But as per the new proposal, it is only one category, any identifiable data. And there is a deviation there also, any identifiable data of a living individual or related data. The problem is government has to define what is related data. So madam, answering your question, this is what is the definition of personal data as of law. And because there is no barrier in that, no categorization in that, the problem here is your email ID versus your PAN number, both are categorized in the same severity. I can't differentiate between these two now. I have to put same amount of effort to secure both of them, whether it is your email or date of birth or anything else. Right? Whether government is going to consider that, I don't know. But this is what is the definition as of now. There are multiple consultations going on. Probably we have to wait and see for the final draft. So that's what is data principle. Data fiduciary. Who is data fiduciary? Who is actually deciding to collect the data with purpose? Banks, organizations like us, right? Employment data is out of this law. So there's a deemed consent. So those who are into this industry, employment data will not be considered. But anything else, right? E-com, anywhere we are, hospitals, right? Even the smallest shop where you are paying through your phone, that is also your personal data, right? Data processor, all of us we know, if we get the data from somebody else to do some work or process, we are data processors. But then the obligation goes back to data fiduciary or the controller. Then data protection officer. You need somebody to blame. So end of the day, we need to appoint somebody as data protection officer, right? Nobody is going to follow on the ground, and you need somebody to be blamed. I'm not a DPO, but I understand the DPO's role. One very critical aspect here which this law has, there's another category which is not there on the slide called significant data fiduciary. So government can decide who can be a significant data fiduciary. Let's say I'm organization XYZ, I'm processing, let's say, 100 million data. And there is somebody else, they're also processing 100 million data. But based on government's discretion, they can decide he or that particular company is a significant data fiduciary, and for that company, additional obligations are there, but not for me. So that right is there with the government organization or probably Data Protection Board of India. So the individual company cannot decide. So for us, all of us are data fiduciary. Only government can decide whether we are significant or not. So they have given some criteria like public interest, your national security, and there are some few more categories are there. So based on that, government can take a call whether you qualify for that particular category or not. Clear on this? See, okay. Data controller is more US-based terminology. So when US had couple of generation 1 regulations, in that they used data controller and processor. And later that was proliferated across the different regions as standard terminology. This is the terminology difference, right? Legally, what is the difference between a controller and fiduciary? I'm not sure. Probably some lawyer can explain this, but both are same when it comes to the responsibility wise. In our law, we have used the word fiduciary, not controller. Otherwise, as per GDPR, as per some of the US terms, it is controller. So basically it is equivalent term, right? So this is what are the key stakeholders. Yes, it is already there. That's why I said, if you want to hold somebody responsible, it is going to be DPO. But see, we have some amount of maturity on this because of GDPR, because of CCPA, because of HIPAA, because of some other regulations across the globe. We have some amount of maturity in this. At least the companies where IT is there, you are processing or working with US or UK based companies. Some amount of maturity is already there. Shall we move to the next one? Now that we have a proposed law, is it going to impact us? Yes It is going to impact us. How? If you see, the consumer-centric organization which include but not limited to technology, telecommunication, healthcare, banking, financial, e-com, edutech, and any other large-scale industry where we are processing data, it is going to impact. It's a very small example. When you go to, let's say you are buying something from a shopping mall, you would have seen this many times. They force us to give us our mobile numbers. And they say you will get the bill digitally, without the mobile number we will not be able to process the bill, all that nonsense happens, right? Absolutely no data minimization. You don't need that. I just need the bill on my name with your GST establishment address, that's all. All of us we know. Phone number has nothing to do with that, right? But they force us. That's the example of data minimization that all of us we need to understand. Without that, they were supposed to provide us service, right? So this is how this is going to impact all major industries. And the law talks about, or the proposed bill talks about, retrofittingly applicable. So that means you go back and check all your data that you have. Okay? Then this is your traditional industry. Apart from traditional industry, we have the technology industries also. Technology industries like AR, VR, Metaverse, Web 3.0, and any other industry where we are processing data, right? IoT is an example where all of us started using a lot of IoT devices where we are collecting, storing, processing data, edge devices, many things we are doing today. So all those places, it is going to impact. Another interesting aspect, earlier we had a lot of debates whether we should store locally, should I store in Singapore, or can I store in Timbuktu, where I can store the data, right? Now that we are generating tons of data, there is a regulation, there is a requirement and all that, right? The bill has recommended cross-border data transfer. You can transfer data, right? No hard localization requirement. But there's a catch there. See, as of now, this is not an act. It is only a proposal, right? So we have to wait till the final act. Now, as per the current act, very tactfully government says, this is something that you can transfer data to cross-border, but there is a question mark there. To whom? Only to the countries where government of India notifies. And now that list is not there today. So if you ask me today, it is as good as hard localization. Okay, because that list is not there. Let's say tomorrow government says, okay, you can send data to G20. What happens to the data center which you have picked or your organization has picked outside G20 because of some requirement? Right? You have to change the architecture. You're right, man. You have to change the architecture. You have to move the data from that particular country to a supported country. So this we don't know as of now. So this is very tricky. That's why I said government wanted to protect our national interest also. And this is where the national interest comes into picture. What if they say Europe is not something which we certify? We certify US because of our relationship. Russia we certify, we don't certify somebody else. Because now these are all broken countries. London is separate, UK is separate, or rather UK is separate, European Union is separate. Right? So let's say they say we don't support European Union. We support initially, we will only notify UK and US and the other countries. Then again, it is going to be tough for us. It is very complicated because I'm not sure how many of you know this. If you go and look at your SaaS applications, whatever SaaS consumption you have today, all of you understand what is SaaS? Yes? No? So all those cloud-based applications, they are somewhere there in a different country. Most of them, 99% of them, right? Now, based on the availability, based on the cost, I'm giving you a simple example. Let's say I want to have some data hosted in some cloud data center. Let's say, for example, let's say AWS. If I host it in India data center of AWS, the cost is, let's say, 100 rupees. If I go to US, it is going to be 60 rupees. If I go to UK, it is going to be, let's say, 50 rupees. If I go to South Korea, it is going to be 40 rupees. as an organization, I will always figure out how to save money. So most of the places we end up going to places where they offer least price. Because service is going to be same. End user will not have any impact. But this law is going to make all our life complicated. So as an auditor, I have to go back and ask, boss, which countries, which regions you are storing data, right? Are they part of this notified list or not? If not, what is the plan that we have to move the data? It is not that easy, not that simple. It is going to be super complex. I know that there are a lot of data we store in South Korea also. There are a lot of large companies who rely on South Korea for data storage. Thankfully not North Korea, but just imagine if you want to migrate applications because of the data storage from South Korea to, let's say, Brussels or somewhere else. It is going to be super complicated, right? Now, this is what is the potential impact that we see if this data or this act is going to be approved in winter parliament season. Now, knowing past track record of our honorable IT minister, he gives us 6 months time. It is going to be super difficult for us. Those who have seen the CERT directives implementation, it was hurried to the maximum extent. All of them, they wanted us to deploy everything within 6 months. Whatever time frame was given to us. Until date, people never understood what is the meaning of those directives. Unfortunately, that's how we have worked. Yes, sir, you have a question?
If the data principal is in India
Correct.
and the data is stored in UK, then which data protection will be applicable?
This law is applicable to data principal. It's a very, very valid question. This law is applicable to data principal. If principal is based out of India, then wherever the data is, they have to comply Indian law. See, NRI, if they are part of this country, right, then this is applicable. Another example, very valid example, that's what I said. Let's say we buy or we do online shopping. I'm an individual, I want to buy something from a company of US. As I'm the data principal, the company is responsible to comply with this requirement. Amazon will comply because they're in India. Let's say somebody else probably will comply because they're in India. Let's say it's a very unique brand. They have nothing to do with India. Then they have only two choices, to say you know or to comply this. So if you are interested for unique products, then we have to see there is a compliance issue there also. Personally, which is going to impact you. Because the company can take a call, rather than serving 4 customers, they will remove that geography, the listing geography name from there. Saying we don't ship it to India anymore. Then you have to rely on your friend from US or whichever geography, can you buy and ship it back to me? That is going to be a little difficult. No, see, penalty is on principal only 10,000 rupees if I am giving wrong information. If I am not, and I am a data fiduciary or a controller, then the penalty is up to 500 CR.
If the data principal is in India but data is generated somewhere else,
When you say generated, it is only your personal data. You cannot generate elsewhere.
if the person is using VPN of different country,
Correct? If you are generating by using VPN, by the way, VPN also comes into this because of the CERT guidelines. So you can't bypass VPN also. Okay, anything else on this slide?
Dhoni's data were actually profiled and they made a PAN card because MS Dhoni's GST number was available on the net, his date of birth was available. So they duplicated his PAN card, they got a credit card and misused it. These are publicly available data.
So that is precisely, that's what I said. When we benchmark ourselves against Europe, Europe is running with the 3rd generation of act. We are yet to get the first one. And because of lack of that act, we have all these kind of problems. So whatever comes now, hopefully it is going to come, right? Probably this kind of incidents are going to come down. Digital photographs, yes, they are part of the law. But if it is a physical copy, no, they are not. So this law is very particular on digital personal data. Digital camera is not part of the requirement here. See, when we say digital, digital is when you are having it on a system, not on a digital device. So wherever you store, that is applicable. Yes, sir, you have something?
Typically, when we are in a kind of a multinational organization,
Oh, yes.
and especially where the operations also are in, say, countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Korea, which have a kind of a strict no-no in terms of the sharing of the data.
Okay.
How do we, as internal auditors, kind of be able to kind of access those data, because anyway we have to kind of look into those data as well to give our assurance.
Sure. We will take this question after 5 minutes because it is already there on the slide. Okay, let's move to the next one. So this is what is the non-compliance. If you miss to comply with the requirement, then this is the annexure where government says how much you have to pay. Very simple, non-criminal. So if you can afford, why not? Well, there are some companies, I'm not sure how many of you know, they factor this in their balance sheet also. It is there, this practice is there, right? Those who are from BFSI industry, you know, there are large banks elsewhere in the world. They do business and they pay penalty because the business what they get is much valuable, right? They generate more revenue. Sorry, ma'am, you have.
Can this offense be compounded?
Good question. I have no idea. See, it all depends on the data protection board which government is going to appoint. Okay? So, feel free to go through. It's available publicly. The bill is available publicly, proposed bill. Okay, so now that we know what is that we can do, because that's what is our bread and butter, right? We are there to help organizations. We can do only 3 things. We can consult those who are from consulting industries. Please consult, make more money. Law is pretty vague. Law can only help lawyers and consultants, right? Coach, after consulting, you need to give them some coaching also. Feel free to do it, earn more money, and help them to comply also. Those who are from internal organization, I can't help. But those who are from consulting firms, helping other organizations, you have enough opportunity in front of you. Please get ready. How you are going to do it? Data protection strategy, guidelines and requirements which is government is going to issue. So I'm not sure they can probably design something what GDPR is having through different consultation papers, because GDPR has got that particular piece very clear. They have multiple consultation paper on different guidelines. You can read, you can understand, you can probably suggest what needs to be done. We don't have that ecosystem as of now. Hopefully that is going to come, right? When I say guidelines and requirements, CERT is probably one guideline we have to comply with. SEBI is another guideline where we have to comply with. Let's say somebody else comes with, let's say, Telecom Authority of India, TRAI has got certain requirements. NPPCI, they have their own requirements. NCCC, they have their own requirements. That there are different government bodies are there. MIT, at times they're also issuing different advisories. So all that can come under guidelines and requirement, plus your organizational approach. See, end of the day, you are part of some organization. And your organization, there's a way that you work. So your organizational approach also needs to be tailored around it. You can't stop doing business just because of the act. You need to comply. As simple as anything, right? Plus the law gives you option, or the proposed act gives you option to go and say, hey, I can't comply now. Voluntary disclosure you can do. Communication process. Now, how you are going to communicate? You have to communicate to stakeholder, you have to communicate to your end user, you have to communicate to your whoever data you are collecting, plus you have to communicate back to the government organizations. And finally, reporting. All of us are good in reporting. We can create colorful dashboards and we can figure out whether we are complying, not complying through different means and procedures. Okay, now this is the most important piece. What is that we can do as implementation experts? How and what principles we can look at it. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. If I am collecting your data, this is the principle which I have to follow. This is very important. Why I am collecting? Lawfully I have to collect, right? It should not be some backdoor, right? No implicit ways of collecting data. There are places we force people to disclose data, right? That should not be the way. It has to be explicit. Then transparency. People should know what data they are giving up and why. The example which we discussed about the shops, without telephone number, I can't generate your bill. That is not correct. Purpose limitation. Whatever you are collecting the data, you should stick to that. You should not use that data for something else. Let's say you have collected data for your business. Let's say you are running some e-com form and you collect the data for some reason. You should not give it to somebody else. Can you do a profiling for me? This is what is my customer base. This is a strict no-no, right? Data minimization. This is something where we have to improve a lot. Now today we collect everything. Whatever you need. What is that you need for identity verification? Can you give me your Aadhaar card? I mean, why you need my Aadhaar card? You can verify me in many ways. Aadhaar card is not required, right? So data minimization, this is the most important thing if you are an internal auditor for some organization. Please practice this. Can we minimize data collection? And if we minimize, what impact we have? Let's say we are collecting 10 different, see, I'm not sure how many of you remember those COVID days. People used to collect left hand or right hand shot. I mean, what you will do with that? Right? So that kind of data is not required. Then accuracy. Whatever we are maintaining, we need to manage the accuracy of the data also. Storage limitation. If the data is needs or is required for 6 months, I should keep it for 6 months, not for 25 years. We have bad habit of hoarding to data. That's probably something there with us. So we need to ensure that strictly we don't store it beyond the lawful limit. The bill says you have to define why you are storing it. It is your responsibility to define it. If you can define that I need the data for next 10 years lawfully, then you can store. But see, otherwise you have to delete. Yes, you have to delete it. If when you give me the notice, if I go back and say, okay, I want you to delete, you have to delete. Data subject rights. Oh yes. It is not, you cannot sell it to government saying, okay, I have infinity requirement to store the data. So that is the catch there. You have to lawfully decide and agree how much data and until when you want to store it. Storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality. That's why persons like me, we help organizations to store it securely, because once the data is public, you know what happens, right? Then accountability. Obviously, you need a DPO to be accountable for all this. But DPO is not the only person. The entire organization is accountable for this compliance. Okay, so all of us are auditors. We know the entire journey, how to implement certain things. Very basics, very simple. All of us, we start from appointing somebody as a responsible person, right? So you can call it as management buy-in, management representative, and there are different terminologies are there and different standards. Follow whichever standard you want, make somebody responsible. Not necessarily the DPO can be lawyer or whatever. At least somebody can understand all that. So that is where the journey has to start. And follow the entire 360-degree of implementation phase. There are different ways you can implement it, right? How you are going to enforce it, what procedures you have as an independent auditor, how you are going to audit it. So there are different stages are there. And finally, ensure that periodic audits are there so that you can figure out whether the implementation plan is there or not. This can be done without the data protection bill also, because we, in some or other form, are processing data, right? So that's all I have for all of you. Any questions? We can take 2 or 3 questions. I think people are there.
One is, will it apply to Google, for example, it tracks your GPS or your position or your public photos for the last 5 years and 6 years.
But Google already asked your permission.
You are given the permission, sir. So
cannot later complain of misuse.
you can. Because the consent notice, the problem is whenever you give that permission, there is a disclaimer there how and when they're going to use the data. You have to read that. And if you agree, you have to say yes. Unfortunately, you have no choice.
You have to say
Then say yes. But then you can go back later and say, can you give me the data back, what you have about me, and can we delete all that? Google is going to be obligated to do this, post this law.
the second question I have is the data or information residing with CIBIL, for example.
Oh, yes.
That must be collected from, say, various utility companies, credit card companies, and so on.
Yes.
But CIBIL data is available to a lot of NBFCs, microfinance, other spammers. So is CIBIL not covered in this? How do they give my CIBIL score to 10 organizations?
So it goes back to the definition of personal data. Living identifiable data and related. Now, if government notifies what exactly is and related, and if financial information falls under that category, then yes. Otherwise, no. Yes, sir.
With respect to the data which we store of employees, of course, with GDPR being where it is right now, even after they have left the organization, they have a right to come and ask you to delete their personal data.
Yes.
And all of that is there. What efforts do you think that organizations in India have to, sort of put down to sort of identify first to see what kind of data that they already have, which would probably fall into this bucket? And point number two, how practical is it that you think that in a country like India, that there is no specific law that's being there? And of course, the Companies Act and all of that. How do you think that we'll be tackling this problem?
Okay, so two parts. Second part is fairly straightforward. Act is there on the way. Hopefully we'll get it in Parliament, winter Parliament season, right? Now, if we don't get it, then we know what is going to happen. First part, how we are going to discover, how we are going to figure out how much data we have. There are data governance programs are there. How you start discovering your data. How we figure out what is my front door to collect the data. There are manual solutions are there are automated solutions are there which can crawl, which can interview, which can figure out where, what kind of data you have based on the age of the organization. How much data can be stored, how much data can be deleted, how much data can be retained based on the purpose of your company, based on the legal requirements of the country or data subject or data principle in this case. All this is already available. See, if you are complying with GDPR, GDPR has already all these norms and conditions. Just that we have to extend it as a practice.
How will government actually find the non-compliance? Would there be checks or we are self-regulating?
See, one, as somebody said, court cases. Second, they are going to implement some kind of compliance process. See, for example, if you see the difference between HIPAA and GDPR, GDPR is always self-disclosure or by complaint. But if you look at HIPAA, there the HHS, which is the body, they do random audits. So we have to wait and see if those mechanisms are there. Any last question? Okay, thank you.